My name is Zoe Okafor, and it's another opportunity for us to talk about issues that concern us as a society with the view of coming up with practical ways to deal with them. Now, welcome to Let's Talk on Loveworld Plus. Now, the insurgent Islamist sect Boko Haram last week, through a spokesman, said that it was ready to end its campaign of violence, but on certain conditions. They said that former Borno State Governor Modu Sharif should be arrested and that peace talks should be held in Saudi Arabia. The sector also asked for compensation for families of its members that were killed in the course of its terrorist acts and, the rebuilding of its mosque by the federal government. It also demanded the release of all its members in the custody of security agencies. Now, these are just some of the demands that they have put forward. Now, what do we make of this sudden turnaround, with the group wanting to negotiate? What does that mean? What is the implication of all of that? Is the government willing to negotiate? Is the government willing to compensate, like the sect said they want compensation for the families of the members that have been killed and all of that? Now, these are some of the things that we are going to be addressing in today's discussion. And to help me do that, I am joined by Sunday Odibashi, who is the political editor of the National Daily newspaper. He is also a public policy analyst. It's great to have you on the show again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so we are looking at Boko Haram's dialogue and the proposed government's compensation. Now, before we move into the compensation aspects and, some reports that say that the federal government might compensate, I want us to look at this sudden seeming desire by Boko Haram to want to negotiate. Of course, in the light of there were previous attempts, previous efforts to try to dialogue with them, which were always rebuffed or which always failed. Now, when you heard the news first, when the spokesman came up and said, okay, you know what, we want to negotiate now, but these are our demands. What came to your mind? What do you make of this entire thing?
Yeah, I think the demand itself, their preparedness for dialogue this time is an indication that they have actually they have begun to suffer casualties. I do remember the last time we talked about this matter on this platform.
Yes.
Now, we talked about the issue, the possibility of collateral damage, that they need a level of collateral damage in their own camp to bring these people to submission. You don't beg them for dialogue, but you make them suffer damages that will also enable them know that, yes, we are destroying human lives, and our own human life, the life of our own whatever belief system, are also being destroyed. And I think they've got to that point now. If you even look at their demand, the conditions they are giving, it shows that they have actually suffered damages also in their own side. Yeah. And until this is done, they were not really prepared for any form of dialogue. And this thing didn't start until they got to Kaduna. And Kaduna is a very sensitive zone in the north. You hit me, I hit you. The Christians will rise and will go after the mosque. If you come after the church, we'll go after the mosque. And when you know that your brother, your sister, or your mother also attend mosque, you also tell yourself, oh, when next I'm going to the church, then something is also going to happen to my own mosque and my relations. And I think they have got to this point. And again, there are also issues of, they're also beginning to have internal divisions. So they no longer can hold together. Okay. You understand? Okay. So the things are beginning to fall apart. And some of them are beginning to feel, yes, we are going this way, we are going this way. Some are becoming leftists, some are becoming rightists. And that division is there. So they are also having that problem. There again, like we also said, it's like some of their sponsors are also losing interest. So the funds probably may not be coming in as they were coming before. So they're now finding a way, a soft landing to get out of it. So that's another area to also look at it.
Okay. So you are saying that this desire for negotiation is sincere. Now, I'm asking these questions because looking at how the announcement came, first of all, the man purported to be second in command that made the announcement is not the person that we usually see, or is not the one that usually makes the announcements for Boko Haram. You know, also during the teleconference, he was speaking in English as against Arabic, which they normally speak when they want to make announcements. You know, so we're looking at Boko Haram and we're looking at this announcement that came. Do you think the man was speaking for all of Boko Haram, or do you think he was probably just speaking for a certain group within Boko Haram? You know, do you think that this demand is a reflection of the entire group?
Yeah, I think that is also one area where the federal government would need to investigate properly to ascertain the authenticity of, you know, the arrangement for dialogue in one area. Because if you also look at it, you also look at people they felt could mediate. That is also suspicious.
Yes.
Because somebody like Muhammad Buhari, for instance, is a known enemy of the federal government, so to say. He's also directly an enemy of Mr. President since the last general elections. Then how can such a person mediate in this kind of crisis? Because when you look at it, he felt he has lost something and he has been agitating for it.
Okay.
One, that is one thing you look at. Then secondly, he has vested political interests in this country.
Yeah.
How is he going to abandon that vested interest to mediate and be objective in mediating between Boko Haram and federal government? So it also makes the entire process suspicious.
Okay.
So it's an issue that the federal government must have to. Because we have also read all these Islamic uprisings here and there. They always speak in Arabic and others. Each time they want to communicate, they will get somebody to translate. But for you to have come and bring down the group to the level of speaking in English is also suspicious.
Okay. Now we're still talking about the sincerity of the group. You know, they said, okay, it's like they declared a ceasefire with that announcement, you know. But just in the news, we also saw a bombing, you know, an attack on a police station in Yobe State. So what do you make of it? Is it still an indication that there are several factions within Boko Haram and, you know, they're doing their things differently? Now, if that is so, what does it mean for this negotiation? Does it mean that the federal government, if the federal government agrees to negotiate, does it mean they're only negotiating with a certain part of Boko Haram while the other part continues on their spree of violence?
Yeah, you see, basically in a kind of violent uprising like this, usually they are always factions.
Okay.
You know, it happened in the Niger Delta. If you go to the southeast, you get it there. You go to the southwest, you have the OPC, they are still there. You know, but they always have a general leader. So that one is also an established fact. Yeah, the factions are there. And it's always difficult to get all the factions to agree that we must stop at a point. So why others will be saying, okay, let's have a ceasefire. Some others will still be, you know, be going on with the struggle, so to say. And then when you look at it, but the point is that the agreement or the decision to say we are going for a ceasefire will certainly come from the top. So when the announcement came from the second in command, what was the level of consultation?
Amongst them.
You know, what was the level of consultation before they arrived at that decision? And since then, the first in command has also not uttered a word. And yet we still have these pockets of bombings and attacks. So it shows that more investigation needs to be done to really ascertain the genuineness of this proposed dialogue.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, the program is still Let's Talk on Loveworld Plus, and we are looking at Boko Haram's dialogue and the proposed government compensation, focusing on Nigeria, of course. Now, we've talked about the sincerity or the lack of it on the side of Boko Haram with their desire for negotiations. Now, let's look at the part of the federal government.
Okay.
Now, should the federal government even negotiate, considering the fact that Boko Haram has come up with demands which they say must be met if any form of negotiations are going to hold? Now, there was this report, you mentioned it, that said that the federal government might compensate, you know, the family members of the bereaved. And that is funny because, I mean, people have died in the past because of their attacks. So is the federal government compensating their members only? What about other people that got killed and their families and all of that? But really, how do you see the position of the federal government and the pressure that is on them to respond to these demands?
Yes, the issue of this bombing has been a very serious matter, and that has placed pressure on the federal government. But when you look at the whole gamut of violence, by these people, one is a criminal offense against the Nigerian state. This is an act of terrorism. Okay. Because from the beginning, they've actually known, even up to now. So on what basis are they going into dialogue? What is their demand? Because they've not come up with any clear demand. Rather than say we should release, they just give conditions, but they are not actually placing demand on the Nigerian state. Because even after this dialogue, what is it that you want? What is the issue? What is the cause of this crisis? What are you fighting for? So what do you want from the Nigerian government? That has not been established. Okay. That is one point. Then secondly, the identity of those people are yet unknown. Although you may not know them, because also we never knew those in the Niger Delta, in the creeks, until they came out. But they had clear demands. But in this case, there's no clear demands. And there's nothing at stake. Up to they've not made it. So on what basis are you talking of? Because even the dialogue itself is something that is still very unreasonable. Yeah. Because you cannot dialogue with criminals.
Okay. Now, talking about the Niger Delta, there was this report also that the families of members in the Niger Delta, they're also clamoring for federal government compensation for their own family members of victims or people that lost their lives and all of that, as they're about to do for Boko Haram, if that is going to happen.
The point is that, you see, the point is that in the case of Niger Delta, they had a clear issue in the struggle. But this is what they don't.
But they say they want Sharia law to be more widely applied in Nigeria. That was what they, when they came up first, they said that's what they want.
That again complicates the whole issue. Because they say Nigeria is a secular state. And no one individual can come and say, this is what you want. Do you understand? Now, if you go to Cameroon, the southern Cameroon, they have rebels there who are saying we want to be on our own. They fight the government, at all time. Even up to now, we have some of them in Nigeria as refugees. So those people, they have clear demand on the government of Cameroon. But here in Nigeria, the Boko Haram, whatever they call them, do not have any clear demand on the government of Nigeria. And for you to come and say, you have to make the whole country an Islamic country or a Sharia, whatever. You read the history of religion in Europe. It has been a source of violence until they got to where they are today. And government has tried everything in Europe and even in America to separate religion from government, from politics. And that is why they have a relative peace up to now. Now, here it shows that we're also coming to a level of development. Nigeria is coming to a level of development where the people are becoming in charge, gradually becoming in charge of the country, so to say. Maybe because of the enduring democracy. Because during the military, people were not really out there. We had if you also remember the violence in Kaduna, during the time of Loveworld, when there was similar uprising about this, and the Christians, they fought back.
Yes.
And they fought them to a standstill. That even the federal government, being headed by a Muslim head of state, had to sentence Loveworld to death. And the generals from that zone said, no, if you kill this man, we'll bring down this government. Because Loveworld is a Christian. And because they never had the opportunity of slaughtering all the Christians, the government now say, we'll sentence you to death because he's a Christian. And the head of state, Babangida, was a Muslim. And the general said, no, if you kill this man, we'll bring this government down. And that was how the Loveworld was saved. So for anybody to come in now, the point is that for me, whatsoever that the federal government thinks that has brought these people to this point, I think they should continue with that.
Okay.
They should not compromise the sovereignty of the federal government. They should not compromise the territorial integrity of the Nigerian state. Then once these ones are done, it is for these people to come out and say we surrender. they should surrender and not give conditions for downline. So the issue is that they must be forced to surrender because they're already losing the battle. They fought this man, the president, first year, second year is going, and the guy is not submitting. Even if they continue for 100 years, they will never bring him down. You know, but for, again, to even talk of compensation, who will compensate for the United Nations building that was destroyed? There was an attack on the police headquarters in Abuja. Who compensated for that? They're the churches that were destroyed.
They were the ones that actually bombed those places.
They bombed churches. Who compensated for that? The point is that the federal government should even ignore this and insist on the security of this country.
Okay.
And they must force these people to the point of submission. And they have to, it's for them to surrender. They have law on terrorism. So what are we talking? Are they compromising that law now, the law now? Because the National Assembly talked about it, they have an enactment.
Yes, sir.
And they should just look at that book and get it done. From the beginning, people have been mentioning names. People have been saying, a lot of politicians have been saying that the federal government should hold Buhari responsible. They should hold Modu Sherif responsible.
And some other senators.
You know, they mentioned. I mean, so one or two senators have been, you know. So why is the federal government not prosecuting these people? If you are looking for facts to hold people like Buhari, what are the ones that you had the facts? What are they doing about them? Because when they get that done, well, then we will be able to make achievements.
Okay. So, you know, in the beginning you said that whatever made them come out asking for negotiations or wanting to negotiate, that it's an indication that things are falling apart,
Yeah.
you know, that they're beginning to lose ground and all of that.
Yeah.
Now let's take a look at the JTF, who has largely has played a major role in tackling, you know, that menace and trying to round people off. We've had several reports of killings, of people being arrested and all of that. Now, but however, the JTF has been accused of being very high-handed. You know, the army has been accused. There was this report by Amnesty International last week that talked about the army using high-handed tactics to actually go after people, and by doing so, other people have been involved, other people have been affected rather, civilians have been affected. Now, what do you think about the GTF and the methods that they have been using in going after these people?
You see, Amnesty International, you know, to say it's unfair to the Nigerian government. It's unfair to the security operatives, you know, because in the first instance, it's a war situation. Terrorism is a war situation. And, you know, like there's this theory in the social science scholarship. When they talk about the just war doctrine. And the debate was that should Christians go to war? And some scholars said no. That when you become vulnerable to a certain force, then you go to war. Then you have to have a specific target where you can now unleash violence. That's just the just war doctrine, doctrine. Now, excuse me. To get to that point, the JTF now move into a direction of, don't forget that the Boko Haram themselves, they mix up with ordinary people.
Yes.
So it's not like they are in an environment that is just, you know, meant for them, separate environment. No, they mix up between people to go and operate. So when you're not coming, the same people refuse to identify them. And the point is that when the JTF, when they are moving in a direction, it's just like you're chasing an armed robber, you shoot, you could have stray bullets. And more especially when the man is returning fire for fire. So you cannot really at all time be accurate, you understand? So that is just the point. So the JTF, they have a duty to ensure security. Okay. And if you have an environment where you accommodate these people and you never have divulge information about them, then the tendency is that they suffer a level of damage.
Okay, so you're saying that they've been doing well so far, the JTF, they've been doing a good job in terms of...
Of course they have. Definitely yes, because we are talking of force. We are not talking of people that you now say, okay, let's discuss. No. We are talking of people who are exchanging bullet for bullet.
Okay.
You know, and they've even got to the level of bombing. So they have done what they should do. And when you feel, I think the point that what they probably might not have done, or they may not even need to do it, is to say, okay, people in this location, please relocate within social period. But even when you make such an announcement, even the criminal is also relocating. So it becomes, it's a very complicated situation.
Okay, well, we're still on it. We're focusing on Nigeria and the Boko Haram dialogue and the proposed government's compensation. And we've said quite a lot about this seeming new desire by Boko Haram to want to negotiate with the federal government, putting up several demands, which the federal government will have to give in to before any sort of negotiations take place. Now, in conclusion, what should be the way forward for the nation? What should be the position of the federal government in the light of this? You know, there have been some senators who were also fingered in having links to Boko Haram. You know, we mentioned some of them. What about them? What does the federal government really have to do with all these new developments to ensure, like you said, that the sovereignty of the country is intact, is being maintained? Yeah. What should be the way forward, really?
Yeah, no, one, those senators who have actually been, in a way, fingered, they just have to be prosecuted, and they have to hasten their, their prosecution, because the man who indicted Senator Ndume has been sentenced to 3 years imprisonment without delay. But up to now, Senator Ndume is still
walking free.
Walking free. And it shows that the government should be focused and say this is what we want to be. Nobody should be above this country. The moment you are indicted, you are being implicated, they should go ahead and pick you. Look at Senator Zana. He even had the privilege of addressing press conference. In fact, he's even exchanging, he's even at war with Sheriff about who owns the Boko Haram. This one saying that this one did this one did that one did that. And that's enough for what else does the federal government want? Pick these people, including Sheriff himself. And now the Boko Haram themselves are saying, okay, arrest this man. So they should get these people, get them prosecuted, and let the law be applied, onto them. That is one. Then secondly, is that the JTF themselves should intensify whatever they are doing. And that is just the truth of the matter. They should intensify whatever they are doing and then force the power of the Nigerian state. It cannot be compromised.
Okay.
And they can never submit to any section. Except you have a choice you want to secede. It's a different case.
Okay. So what you're saying, regardless of what happens, the federal government must not give in to the demands.
They must not. They must insist on the supremacy of the federal government over any section.
Okay.
So that is just the point.
Well, I guess it has all been said. The federal government must be focused in this, and whatever it is that they have been doing to make this insurgent Islamist group feel that they're beginning to lose ground, they probably should intensify efforts. And also, whatever happens, under no circumstances must the federal government give up the sovereignty of the country. No one sect or no one group of persons should hold an entire nation to ransom. Now, these have been some of the conclusions that we have been able to arrive at in today's discussion. Remember, we had been talking about Nigeria, Boko Haram's dialogue, and the proposed government's compensation. And I did have the pleasure of talking with Sunday Odibashi, who is the political editor of the National Daily newspaper, as well as being a public policy analyst. Thank you so much for being here and shedding more light on some of the things that we talked about. And thank you as well for being part of this program, as you always do. We will be back here again tomorrow with another topic that we will be looking into and looking for practical ways in which to deal with them. Thank you very much.